Welcome back to the Anarchy Analysis series. We are back for week number 2 of the LEC prediction series. We have 10 games this week on the docket instead of the usual 15, as the summer split is longer than the previous 2. So, more time, more chances to digest the action, of which we might as well go over the action we've already seen with the results to last weekend. In total, we hit a nice 8 out of 15, only dropping the games that follow: SK Rogue, BDS Vitality, Vitality Carmine Corp, Vitality Rogue, Carmine Corp versus Mad Lions Koi, G2SK, Fnatic Vitality, and GXSK. It's a pretty solid result for our opening weekend, so let's move into this weekend, starting with our matchup of the week. Said matchup of the week actually is the first game of the weekend. It is Team BDS versus SK Gaming. Why is this our match of the week? Well, both teams are the surprisingly undefeated 3-0 teams from week 1. Very surprising in both cases, I think. Especially for me with SK, because I expected teething problems. They're a team that realistically looked to be possibly a shaky, low-performing squad for the opening weekend, but no. Coming in with a lot of power and demolishing the opponents in every matchup they had. Rogue versus SK was pretty one-sided. Rogue tried to play some styles but didn't really work out for them. Their second game was against G2, who G2 tried to play G2 things but just got outclassed and outscaled. And then on day number 3, they faced off against Giant X, who I think Giant X are quite weak overall, and they lost pretty easily to SK. On the other side of things, they have BDS, the team that I thought would have a rough start. Obviously, the squad stayed the same coming into this split, and their opening weekend was arguably very phenomenal, with Ice picking up a pentakill in their second game. They look good, and BDS as a squad really did kind of get up to a high level, and are very much looking to be on course for a playoffs entry early into the season. So I think that BDS will win this one outright. I think that their drafts have been certainly the more interesting, the more explosive of the two teams. However, SK, I think, have a bit more of a surprise factor to them compared to BDS, and I believe that they probably will perform arguably very well. Though, don't be surprised if this goes to either squad. So that's kind of why I have to go with BDS, because they are the more consistent team over the year. So our second game of the weekend sees Rogue taking on Fnatic. Now, I'm going to come into this one with a bit of a realistic perspective. Fnatic 3-0'd the opening weekend, demolishing everyone. We obviously covered their opening game of the weekend against Carmine Corp live on stream on Sunday, which will be the same day that I will be breaking down the BDS SK game that we're getting this week. But as a whole, this Fnatic squad have come in with pretty much draft differentiation gameplay, because against Carmine Corp they outdrafted them and simply just played the style needed from the draft to an absolute perfection. Game 2, they played up against Giant X, Giant X are pushovers right now. They out-team fought them, forced them into mistakes, and punished. Simple as you like from Game 2. And then Game 3 versus Vitality. Vitality have just been slipping. Like, slipping. Shout out MA with such good songs. But yeah, as a whole, Fnatic have been on point. Humanoid, he gets his hands on picks like Hui. He's being very, very dominant on them picks. Oscar Rinnin holding his own against literal MVPs and or LCK champions. And then you've got Razork setting up the map, allowing for silent carry Noah to take over games without really anyone realizing he is doing so. And that has been Fnatic through these opening games that we saw in week 1. This week they go up against Rogue in day 1, and Rogue are about where people expected them to be. Picking up at 1 win probably in the opening weekend was expected of them. Did people expect it to be against Vitality? Probably not. It was more likely going to be against Karmine Corp, where they actually faltered. So yeah, the logic is Rogue look a lot better this split, I think. I think that the cohesion, the map movements are there. I think that Larson is looking a lot better this split than what he did last, and is trying to carry for the team. However, things get basically blown up against them. They fumbled the bag basically against Karmine Corp. After playing such a dominant mid game, they then allowed the Azir to reach power spikes, stealing away barons and objectives, and the control around objectives was lacking from Rogue. They had multiple objectives stolen against them in the opening weekend. Like, I think both times it was a Baron, because the Vitality game, well, they won that one, the Baron was stolen against them. The KC game, they lost, the Baron was stolen against them, and they just then fell apart. Clearly, objective control, warding vision, not allowing 50-50s to happen needs to be a concern for Rogue when they're controlling games pretty well. Against Fnatic, a team that's been very dominant in control, a jungler who likes to steal, likes to play the map, you can't be making them mistakes, and I think Rogue will be punished heavily against Fnatic. I've gone with Fnatic winning this game, by the way, and I think as a whole, Rogue will suffer because they're not at the stage of late game map control, knowing where they can be on the map at all times, knowing their strengths, power spikes. It's really, the fundamentals of League just don't seem to be there with this team right now, and that is a massive issue, all things considered. Game 3, MDK versus Vitality. I'm gonna call this one the Battle of the Losers, because week 1's biggest losers were arguably these two teams, and I would honestly say it's underperformance from both squads after the opening weekend. Vitality lost to Rogue, lost to Fnatic, and also lost to BDS. So, two of the teams they faced were undefeated squads. The other team was Rogue, which bit of a bummer for Vitality. As for opponents, MDK, they lost to G2, they lost to Carmen Corp, and they lost to... Sorry, they won against Team Heretics. So they're on a 1-2 record, which is a little better than 0-3, but it's not that much difference. I think that these two teams need to start to improve. This is certainly a game where a lot's on the line, because you think about season finals, Mad are almost guaranteed to make it, and I think Vitality, due to the fact that they've made 2 playoffs in a row, had decent runs in it. I'm not saying they're the best, but the runs have been decent enough that they're almost certainly going to go to season finals. And I've just learned that top 3 in the LEC this year go to season finals as a whole. It's a nice thing to know, but to be honest, this matchup possibly could define some seeding going into season finals, and I think that on paper after week 1 you've got to go with MDK, purely because they've got more wins than Vitality. And Vitality, I don't know, they seem lost. Like, they performed quite well, but fumbled the bags. And that's a massive issue, considering Kazi tried to put the team on his back, but he couldn't carry all the weight. And Vitality need the rest of the team to step up around him in order to win, and that needs to happen for anything to work on this squad. But I don't think after a week of training after the opening weekend will change that. So I have to go with MDK being able to just make it work for themselves, you know. The second to last game of day number 1 is Team Heretics versus Carmine Corp. And what do you know? KC looking better than what they did in the opening 2 splits of the season last year. And I'm gonna be honest, I still see issues with this squad, and it is with their support. Upset performing well though is a good sign. Kinda trying to find his footing. He had a struggle game against Fnatic after picking up first blood for himself and having control of the lane, but he fumbled that bag because the Poppy and the draft difference that Fnatic had just made it so that KC realistically fell out of the matchup. That being said, Vladdy trying to find his footing, managed to do well against Rogue after being bullied early by Larson. But as a whole, KC doing quite good, and not many people expected them to be 2-1 after week 1. And I'm gonna jinx it, but I think that they're gonna fumble the bag here in day number 1 against Team Heretics, who I think are on a rampage. They're certainly looking to continue the form that they found themselves in during spring. Yankos on a bounce back split, very good. He's looking to maybe retire at the end of the year. That's an unknown, but he is certainly trying to showcase that he's still got it. And I think that he is arguably still one of the best junglers in the league, though people may underestimate his skill. And I think that going up here for Carmen Corp's jungler, I forget, closer, 2 junglers who can play a similar style. Yankos does play carries, but I think Closer's more consistent with carries compared to Yankos. I think that we'll probably have to focus the matchup onto the jungle. I do like both styles, but Closer has a very eerily similar style to Inspired, where carries try to control the league in the matchup, but typically speaking, Yankos will default to maybe a tankier option, and that may result in the Team Heretics win I've predicted. I think that, realistically speaking, you match up the laners against one another. You've got top lane Wonder Kana, 2 regional champions of arguably the biggest dynasties in that region. Junglers, you've got 2 top level champions of the regions that as a whole want to be the carries that make and fuel the team's success. Mid lane realistically is 2 rookie mid laners. Yes, I'm pretty sure that you can't really call. Actually, no, you can. He is technically a rookie for this season, but that is a big matchup there. And then the bot side, Flakkid and Trimby versus Upset Antagonist. I think that's a very interesting matchup. Both teams, arguably, very strong in different elements. I do think that the bot lane matchup slightly favors Team Heretics. Jungle favors Heretics on the basis of what picks get played. Top lane fairly even, to be honest, after an opening weekend action. Wonder's been quiet, but you kind of need him to be quiet because the rest of his team's just popping off for him. And so yeah, that's why I've gone with a Heretics win. I think that overall on paper they're better. I think that they're certainly feeling it more. And Carmen Corp probably won't be able to adjust to the style that Yankos wants to bring and the rest of Heretics. The last matchup of day number 1 is G2 versus Giant X. Both teams shaky week 1s. The easiest way to word it. GX, I'm pretty sure, did not pick up a game at all in the opening weekend. Yes, they did not pick up a game. Kind of obvious. I think that GX, the changes they've made are very detrimental to them. The Antonio coming in realistically is punishing. Odawame was a rock. I like some of the things that he's trying to do, trying to be proactive and making plays, but he's more so playing for the team rather than what Odo did, where he tried to play for the team and also be the carry. From what we've seen from the Antonio is tanks and engage, but nothing more than that, and being picked off and bullied is what I would say is happening to him. Going up against G2, where Broken Blade is on fire, he's still performing well even if G2 aren't. And G2, let's be honest, don't really care to split. They're already in season finals. They've already been to an international tournament. And personally speaking, they don't need to try as hard, because they're pretty much guaranteed first seed at season finals with 2 split wins. So yeah, they don't care. Personally speaking, I still think G2 will win. I think Broken Blade probably will just demolish that matchup. Jungle matchup is probably the interesting one, where Yike versus Juhan. Juhan has a similar style to what Peach does, from what has been said by pros who have faced up against him. I am still yet to really rate what Juhan does for the team, but then again, I didn't really rate what Peach did for GX. So maybe Giant X can have a better second weekend compared to what they did first. But I think that G2 will wipe the floor with them, and their second opponents this weekend are MDK, so maybe they have a chance there. Only time will tell as we get into predicting Day 2's games. Like normal, just because it's not a super weekend, we're going to rapid fire through day number 2. Our opening game of said day is Team Heretics versus Vitality. I have gone with a Team Heretics win. Rogue versus G2, I have gone with Rogue. Giant X versus MDK, that aforementioned matchup, I have gone with Giant X. Fnatic versus SK in a battle of the 3-0 teams, I have gone with Fnatic in that El Clasico. And last but not least, Carmine Corp versus BDS. I've gone with BDS to win that one in the battle of the French teams. And yeah, all 10 games predicted. Feels nice to have a little less action over the weekend compared to the past 2, this year and last year of League in Europe. But yes, we're rounding it out here. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have enjoyed this video, these predictions, leave a like down below. Put in the comments your predictions. How do you think I'm realistically doing in predicting these? My logic going into them. Just write something. I'm not really fussed as to what, but I will read them. Leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you guys next time, where we will be live breaking down BDSSK on Sunday. You don't want to miss it. See you guys then. Peace out.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss that stack, taking big